Hey guys, how are you doing? My name is Mark Hartsuch. I'm a saxophonist, producer, arranger, composer, among other things, and I'm really excited to get on here and maybe talk a little bit about my life. And who knows, maybe even this will turn into a more extensive podcast at some point. But really, this is just a way for me to try something out and have some fun and maybe talk a little bit about my life and talk about maybe some of my thoughts right now if you care to listen. So, to those of you who are out there who are um, maybe fans of mine or people who have listened to me at a concert, hi again. Thank you for tuning in and checking out some of what I have to say. So, for those who don't know me, I'm Mark. Um, I started playing saxophone when I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old. My grandfather, his name was Edward Latondras. We used to uh, bake pies together. He was the first one to hydrogenate oils. So basically, he took um, unsaturated fats and turned them into poly unsaturated fats. So he was instrumental in making the Twinkie filling, 7C salad dressing, um, soft margarine, among just like a ton of other food products. And when my mother and my aunt were children, he would come home and I guess he would like use some of these oils from the factory and he would, um, bake pies or bake bread and stuff like that. So he became a baker fairly early on. So that was something that I got to experience with him, and we would bake pies, and it takes about 45 minutes to bake a pie once you make the pie. And so he would sit me down on the couch, and he called it a Davenport. He would sit me down on the Davenport and he'd make me sit still and he would make me listen to jazz records. Some of those early records that I used to listen to: Stan Getz and Oscar Peterson Trio, uh, Harold Betters, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, some other Oscar Peterson records, Bill Evans. And one of those records that he had as well was John Coltrane Blue Train. He actually did not like that record, um, but it became one of the most important records for me, along with the Stan Getz records that I heard. So this would have been when I was 5 or 6 years old that I was really checking out those records, and I kind of became obsessed with the saxophone. My sister was, playing clarinet. My sister is 8.5 years older than me. Her name is Rachel, and she was playing clarinet and piano, and was really instrumental as well to show me what excellence on instruments could look like. So between my grandfather and my sister, um, I was really really excited to play the saxophone. But my parents wanted me to be a piano player, and so it wasn't until I was like 8 or 9, like I mentioned, that I actually like kind of begged my parents to get a saxophone. It was right around that time that we actually found out that my mom had breast cancer, and it was stage 3 plus of breast cancer. So it was a very, very serious form of breast cancer. And so while she was going through her operation and chemotherapy and radiation and all that stuff, I actually was just at home and practicing, the saxophone. Prior, I think, to my mom's diagnosis, I was like a really extroverted kid, um, like always outside playing with everybody and like all this stuff. And I kind of retreated into music, and music was like this singular comfort at that point in my life where I could really just explore and try things out. And also, I had a goal that I wanted to accomplish too, which was, to be a sax player even then and there. I was so fortunate that my parents, paid for lessons every week with a local saxophone player here in the Chicago area. His name is Rich Moore. I cannot believe how lucky I was to actually work with the person who I think is like one of the best saxophone teachers I've ever worked with. I've worked with all of the I wouldn't say all of the greats. I mean, how could you work with everyone? But, I've worked with so many amazing saxophonists, saxophone teachers, and the fact that I got Rich Moore, wow, I just really lucked out. He got me into jazz early on, and I just really took to it, and I loved it. And my parents were so supportive of me, and they sent me to like band camps and stuff, and they were driving me to like youth jazz ensembles in the area at Elgin Community College, at Northern Illinois University, at the Merritt School of Music in Chicago. So fast forward, I'm trying to decide, they're asking me like, what do you want to do for college? And I was like, well, of course I'm going to be in music. Everything I was doing up to that point was mostly music related. My high school girlfriend, her name was Jordan, and she was so smart. It was just unbelievable how smart she was. And because I wanted to sit next to her in class, I ended up joining all honors classes and AP classes just to sit next to her. So I'm very grateful to her and specifically to her mom, who was like very instrumental, I think, for her getting into um, advanced education. I think Jordan went to Harvard and is like a Harvard PhD now. So amazing work, Jory, wherever you are. But um, but yeah, basically, my parents were asking like, "What do you want to do?" And for me, I was always the best thing that I think separated me from other people was music. It was because of this passion I had early on, and I really identified with the music, and the best friends that I was making were through the music. And so, not only was it something that I was good at, but also I felt emotional about it. I felt like, really connected to it in a deeper way with the friendships that I was making and whatnot. So then I went to the University of Illinois. I studied with some amazing professors there: Chip McNeil, um, Tito Carrillo, Jim Pugh, some absolutely like monster musicians. However, my first year that I was at the University of Illinois, it was amazing because we had this huge class size that was in the senior class. There were I think, 80 jazz students that were in the senior class. Unfortunately, when I was a freshman, there were only 4 jazz majors. So when I went into my sophomore year, we had this large attrition of students that left the University of Illinois, and all of a sudden the program became very small. Now, something I generally feel about music programs is that as amazing as the teachers are, the student body is equally important. Who you go to college with is super super important. Who your friends are, who you're hanging out with after. Are you going to practice together after your class? So, um, even though the instruction was absolutely world class, it was really important to me that I moved to a larger university for music, uh, not in terms of quality, like I mentioned, but in terms of class size. So I transferred to the University of North Texas, which I'm not exactly sure how many students were there when I was there. Uh, I think there were some 9 big bands: 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, all the way to 9 o'clock. And then there were students that were not in a big band as well. So if each big band had 20 students and there are 9 big bands, you can imagine that there would at least be 180 jazz students. So I would imagine that the program was, 250 students strong at any given time for just the jazz department. So I played in the 1 o'clock band for 2 years in a row. I would say that the major people who influenced me to go down to the University of North Texas would be Stuart Mack. He was someone that Stuart Mack is a phenomenal trumpet player living in New York City right now. And yeah, he's, frequently playing with the Village Vanguard Band and huge jazz ensembles. You'll see him in lots of different videos of jazz musicians from New York. And also, he's an extremely talented teacher. Um, and so he kind of influenced me to come down to the University of North Texas. I always looked up to Stewart because of his insane ability on the trumpet, but also just his work ethic was second to none. He was just so focused. And then I remember seeing a video of Brian Clancy, who is a tremendous LA based musician, playing Yesterdays with the 1 O'Clock Band. And so I knew I had to go down there. And I studied with Brad Lely. Um, I studied with a number of other amazing teachers at the University of North Texas. Was in the 1 O'Clock Band for 2 years for Lab 13 and no, sorry, Lab 14 and 15. Got to spend one semester on. So I was playing tenor in the band both years in the 1 o'clock, but I did spend one semester playing lead alto in the 2 o'clock band to get some experience with that. Was really important and and really helped me with my career now. As like a lot of what I do is playing alto as well. So basically, I graduated in 2015, and around that time, I was dating another. Life is all about like your education, the girls that you were dating, and the things you were doing at that time. I was dating a girl named Rachel, and I was in a car accident, and I needed some money really quickly. And so, fortunately, Daniel Matthews, a trumpet player based in Dallas, Texas, um, helped me out to get me a gig with the Emerald City Band Company. Um, and I was playing in their fourth band called Party Machine. And this is actually when I was still in school, my senior year. And so started making some money playing gigs and playing around town in both like cover band and jazz kind of circuits. And then both Daniel and I were promoted to Limelight Band, which is Emerald City's second band, where we were playing with, basically. So in the 1 O'Clock Band in 2015, the soloists were myself, Daniel, and Joachim Tofgard, and that later became the Dallas Horns. We were playing all these gigs in Dallas, and we just decided, hey, like let's take these arrangements that we're playing that we had written for the band with Limelight, and let's start putting these on the internet and see what happens. Um, and through that, especially at that time, I mean, Facebook was nuts. Like you could put a video up, and if you tagged the right person, they would see it. Like, I don't know, like the algorithm was just so incredible back then, where it's like, people just saw things that you would post, and so we posted a few cover videos. We posted a cover of "Scapegoat Blues" by Jimmy Herring. That video was seen by Jimmy, and almost instantly was just like went to Jimmy's bass player, went to uh, the drummer Jeff Sipe, and yeah, we were talking to Jimmy's manager and the record label Abstract Logics, soon after that, and that posting that single video really changed the trajectory of my life, because through this manager over at Abstract Logics, I got to know Ranjit Barrett, who was on the same record label, and Dallas Horn started working for Ranjit. We did a couple of songs for him, and then he invited us to Goa, India, to go play this festival called the Serendipity Arts Festival. That's where I met Gino Banks and Louis Banks and Rhythm Shaw and Mohini Day and so many other people that I would eventually play with in India. And that was like our audition in a way for A.R. Rahman. Uh, you know, A.R. Rahman being one of the biggest names in the Indian film industry, and uh, so basically, it was quite a big shift for us. We had just, come out of this college program. We're playing. I mean, Limelight Band was playing like international gigs. I was flying to Mexico and down to Cabo and flying to Dominican Republic and up to Canada playing gigs with Limelight Band. But to fly to India to play a jazz festival or to play music festivals and play music on such a high level, that was maybe the first big opportunity that I'd had outside of like the school bands and stuff from North Texas. And so I remember, um, that would have been December of 2017 when we flew to India for the first time, and it really just changed my life. And after that, I kind of knew that like, okay, I'm gonna move to Los Angeles now. I'm feeling like big things are on the horizon. So at first, I went back up to the Chicago area for like a month, and then packed my stuff, moved out to L.A. I lived with this bodybuilder in North Hollywood for my first couple, like what, 6 months. This guy, I used to call him Muscle Milk because he had a Muscle Milk endorsement deal. And so this guy would only drink Muscle Milk and chicken breast and broccoli, but only when the chicken breast and broccoli was on sale. If it wasn't on sale, he would just drink Muscle Milk. Well, it's pretty disgusting what someone's bathroom looks like after they only drink Muscle Milk for like a month. I don't think it's very good for the body. Um, and he would always be on kitchen duty, kitchen cleanup, and I would be on the bathroom cleanup duty. So I got the short end of the stick in that deal. But my rent was so cheap when I first moved to LA. I was only paying $550 to live in North Hollywood, in a decent place too. Um, I think now that would be next to impossible to find anything below 1,000. Um, but yeah, I was just getting out every single day, and I would be, at the Federal or at ETA, or I got to meet some mentors like Jacques Lacheur, Marvin Smitty Smith. Um, they would play at this place called the Parker Room, and at Lavender Blue. Marvin Smitty Smith played for the Tonight Show band, with Letterman, and Jacques Lacheur is a famous, you know, guitar player in L.A. Eric Rivas was Branford Marsalis's bass player. I got to play with them. Theo Croker was a regular at some of these sessions, as and I really got to play with like so many amazing players on those early LA days. My first week in LA was just extremely cool. I met like Beyonce's backup dancers, and I met Justin Timberlake's horn section and Lady Gaga's MD, and I met Terrace Martin and Robert Glasper, and like whether they remember me now or not, it doesn't really matter. But certainly the Justin Timberlake guys, I know them, and I don't know. Those early experiences were just so impactful in LA, and I just felt like I was in this movie, and it was so exciting to really feel like I was in this place that was like there was so much motion at that time, and it felt very romantic in a way. I had just come out of a long-term relationship at that point, and I realized that like I really wanted to focus on my work and music, and kind of absorb this LA experience as much as I could, try to capitalize on some of the horn things that I was doing and interested in. Although like I had played with a major artist where we were arranging horn, like for AR, by the way, when I started playing with him, I didn't mention that Dallas Horns, we were arranging the horn parts, so like we ended up arranging some 120 songs or more, um, of music that did not originally have horns on it, and we wrote the horn parts for it, live. And a lot of times we had to sight read our charts on stage in front of over 40,000 people, because AR would call a song last minute. And so there are a lot of lessons learned through that. But I really wanted to do more horn stuff when I was in LA. I was really, really fortunate to get to meet and work with Philip Lassiter, who was Prince's horn arranger. Did a lot of different types of work with him, whether it be like arranging strings with him or you know, stacking horn parts together. He really really kind of taught me, I guess, through the work how a lot of people stack horns professionally, um, and how to get this certain sound that is so funky and so hip and so big. And I can talk about that in another video, but I felt really, really grateful to have those experiences. So then basically, that was my life from 2018, 2019, 2020. Um, and obviously, as we all know, in 2020, COVID happened. And I really was feeling like things were just on this great trajectory. I mean, like, I remember, like, I was like getting to hang out with guys like Jacob Cesny in LA. I was getting to play with some great singers. I had a great church gig. I was playing some amazing gigs for. I played a gig for Jeff Bezos. I played for all these politicians. I was playing for, you know, starting to get some artist opportunities as well. Well, then COVID hits, and unlike a lot of people in the art and music scene in LA, I just felt really sketched out about taking government money. I've always been kind of I'm this Midwestern kid, like my values did not align with really like taking welfare from the government at that time. Even though everyone was taking it, I just had a hard time with that. And I ended up moving back to the Chicago area with my folks. And from there, um, I that's when Mohini and I started, we got together and stuff. And then I moved to India at the beginning of 2021. And, you know, one thing I will say is that, I had worked with a lot of Indian artists besides AR at that point. And I thought, I guess I hadn't really done the math with certain things with the whole India connection thing. I was making a very top dollar rate as a US artist working with AR. And I tried to charge that when I moved to India, um, which was significantly more than what anyone else was getting paid. So I turned down, unfortunately, like a lot of really great gigs when I moved to India because they weren't paying what, this top of the line gig that I was playing was paying. Um, well, that I kind of shot myself in the foot a little bit as a result of that. So because I was not doing as much sideman work at first in India, it became very apparent to me that I needed to start getting at least some like jazz gigs happening, some art music, so to speak, happening, so that I could play some club shows. And that's kind of where Mamoji was born out of. So keep in mind, prior to this, like, yeah, I did have some like small recording dates with my original music and whatnot, but most of the stuff that I'd done up to that point was like as a sideman. Maybe I was writing arrangements for people or some basic production stuff, but never writing for myself in that way. And I feel that because I was overcharging for my services in India, because I didn't understand the market, and I think I was also being poorly advised by people, um, I kind of shifted to this art space. So, um, so Mamoji was born with Gino Banks and Mohini, and we played all over the place. We played in India, we played in Europe, um, and really, really had just some amazing experiences, and like it felt so man, what a group too. So powerful, you know. The I was really proud of myself for the compositions because they were so big, and I programmed all the synths. I had back in 2019, I did a session for Spectrasonics with Nico Iolasi, and so I have Omnisphere and Keyscape and Trillion and the Drum RX one. I can't remember what that one's called. That's the Stylus RX, I think. The drum synth thing that they have. And so I had all these synths, and you know, like having a project to like invest in with musicians that you can play anything with is such a luxury. And who am I ultimately? Like I always say, I'm just like this Midwestern kid, but I really feel like I became an artist when I moved to India, not because I wanted to be, but because of this whole like, you know, necessity is the mother of invention type of thing. I needed a way to make revenue because of my predicament with overcharging and not getting enough work. So I became an artist and wrote my own music so that I could go play. Um, in that same vein, that's also when I started working with Darshan Doshi. Um, we put together a project in 2023 called Better Than Sax. And we've made two records and done some other things. We got to play at the Cape Town Jazz Festival together with Tony Gray. And overall, I mean, I could do a whole video on my India experience and what that was like as an American and what I think about the U.S. scene versus the India scene. But yeah, that's for another video. In 2024, Mohini and I decided to move back to the U.S. She did not want to go to LA at the time, although that's where most of my contacts were, as that was like my that was the place that I lived last that I worked in the US. She wanted to go someplace like green. And so we moved to Nashville, a place I'd never been, but I'd always told I would do well in as a result of like my skills, improvisation and arranging and, the horn stacking thing that I do for TV and movies and all this sort of stuff. So moved to Nashville. There was a lot less work in Nashville than I thought there would be, especially at this time. I got to kind of know I'm very social and I try to get to meet kind of everyone in the scene. What was interesting was just how few people were really working like they used to. Even the Ocean Way guys, these guys that used to do all these commercial recordings, yeah, they were working, but not the same standard of work which they used to do. And they were also recording at the same rate that they had been recording at for the past 20 years. A lot of those guys were also transitioning to playing wedding gigs, which was used to be maybe below them. And now they were kind of doing it as a result of needing to take the work. So, this whole Nashville horn player scene kind of was kind of going away. So, fortunately, I had some buddies there, the Cantwell brothers, Brandon and Tommy Cantwell. They helped me get some gigs. Got hooked up to a wedding band circuit kind of thing. And then, of course, my good friend Emmanuel Etchem and myself would play jazz gigs in Nashville, but not the volume of work that I had in LA or Mumbai for sure. And so, as a result of that, and also, personal things that ended up happening in my life, I came back here to the Chicago area. Now, the Chicago area the past year and a half has been excellent, excellent. Great work, great musicians. I mean, unbelievable. A great airport here, international place to, I can travel to Europe, I can travel to India, and has really been amazing to be closer to home, especially after living away from my family for 3, 4 years. When I was not seeing them, to get to see them on more of a regular basis is just incredible. So, you know, I guess that sums up a little bit about my history. What are the things that I'm getting into these days? Well, like I mentioned, I'm a saxophone player. I love the music of Michael Brecker, and I would say from a player side, he's the guy who I really identify with his music, although I have not reached his level of technical facility and mastery. I just love his sound and the way he plays the saxophone. Um, there are of course so many other Joe Henderson, John Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, Dexter Gordon. Uh, uh, I mean, man, actually, my list goes on and on with that. But then on the horn arranging side, I love Jerry Hay. I love Philip Lassiter. I love the Hornheads guys. I love the Horn House guys from London. Tom Walsh, unbelievable, unbelievable. Um, I mean, I love horn arranging in general. I just think it's so cool how horns can be used to really amplify music in a different way and bring out something in music that didn't exist. So I would say those are the two things, especially that like the things that really earn money for me are those two things, like being a improviser, my jazz stuff, and then the horn arranging thing. What's been exciting recently is that I've been starting to be asked to do more production stuff, which includes both the arranging and composition stuff. I just did a jazz record for a phenomenal jazz singer in India. Her name is Zian Bamgara. So I produced her album and just recorded a ton of horn arrangements. Just recorded we did a live in person thing in Mumbai where we had a rhythm section and recorded 2 days in the studio with rhythm section. Now she's going to overdub her vocals, but really exciting music. She sent me the piano and vocal play along, and I reinterpreted all of the harmony and the melodic rhythm, harmonic rhythm, added elements of arrangement and kind of my sauce, and it was really really special, to do that with Zian. I mean, I think that she's an amazing person, and she got really great musicians on board. So, and what was even really cool about it is that I was able to incorporate some musicians here from Chicago too in the project, and I'm seeing that that could be a big cross cultural experience to use Chicago players for India projects and vice versa. So I'm hoping that we can kind of create an artistic sort of pipeline between these two cities, Mumbai and Chicago, as a result of some of the things that maybe I'm getting into. Um, Speaking of that, like what are the projects that I'm kind of excited about right now? I would say that the biggest collaborators, especially in India, happen to all be drummers. I have an affinity for the drums. Um, the first one, the one who I of course Ranjit Barrett, we played together. I recorded on his upcoming album. Did a ton of horn stacks for him in Mumbai just recently, and I'm so excited about that. Wow, it's going to be a great record. Can't wait for that. Um, Gino Banks, of course. We did this record. The record's Mamoji 1, Mamoji 2. Um, we have a track that I just finished tonight for his project called Pulse Conversations. That's going to be really, really cool. And then we also have our quartet called Legacy. Sorry, not Legacy, Lifeline Quartet. So more of an acoustic treated group. And there might be a kind of another offshoot of that that's going to come out. So some exciting stuff there. But then also, I work with one Darshan Doshi. We have a project called Better Than Sax, and we have some stuff coming out as well, which I'm really, really excited about. But, you know, I guess if I were going to transition to kind of some of the things that I want to do, here in the Chicago area, there are so many amazing musicians. Um, but I haven't really found the tribe of people. I mean, I shouldn't say that because I feel like I know who they are. I was going to say I haven't found my tribe yet. But, you know, I would say one thing, okay, if I'm going to talk a little bit about India versus the US, is that especially for me in India, I can book a India tour fairly easily in comparison to like booking great paid shows here in America. Um, that is a problem, like I can almost say the word and I can get shows happening in India. It's not that way at all in America. There are a lot of people, and even though I've played at all of these, big festivals all over the world in Poland and France and Italy and India and Malaysia, South Africa, you know, a lot of people can sell themselves really well. Selling myself has never been my strong suit. I'd like to think that I don't know. I'm I'm good at what I do, but it's hard for me to, be super super boastful about myself and put myself in that light. So that's one thing I have to get better at. I had an amazing assistant, which I really want to hire someone like this coming up soon. Her name was Pratiksha, and she was amazing for helping me book shows and helping me. So I think I may be hiring an assistant again to help me with some of these things, reaching out to people and getting shows happening. But yeah, I think that like the whole thing, necessity is the mother of invention. For me, like, if there were some venues to play at that were, encouraging me to come and bring my act there, I would love nothing more than to put a great band together to do that. But recently, it's been a lot of recording at the house. I've been recording a lot of tracks for people here for projects. Some of Corey Wong's guys are on a project I'm doing for phenomenal ukulele and guitar player. I'm of course always recording for gospel projects and for Bollywood tracks. So exciting tracks coming out of the house, and I think that I probably will start doing some educational work here too, which is part of the reason why I'm trying to get in front of the camera a little bit more and get a little bit more comfortable with talking freely, trying to use less ums and ahs when I talk. I'll get to see in post whether I did that or not. But I really want to come up with a comprehensive method of teaching saxophone in the jazz lens from beginners to advanced. Um, Even if that's slightly ambitious, I feel that a lot of the education that's out there right now for younger players is just it's very few and far between, like a really good thorough lesson program. It's like all the videos are like, here's 5 tips for this and here's 3 ways you might not have thought of for doing this thing, and it's like, actually I just need someone to like walk their students through the saxophone the way that Rich Moore did for me. And I really care about this also because there are so many students in India, especially, who have wanted to study with me. Now, some more coming out in the US of how to learn saxophone. And the major thing is that I just don't have enough time with all of these students. A lot of students, will only have maybe the funds for once a month instruction or twice a month instruction. And really, like, I need like 8 hours with them a month to really dive into everything. Because when you're looking at, reading music and playing with right articulation and playing with a good sound and learning the instrument, that's one thing. But then how about like music theory and learning improvisation and learning all these things? So I really want to come up with a method of learning everything in one foul swoop. You know, how can we teach everything in one unified program? So I'm feeling like that is going to be one of my next big endeavors alongside my production, alongside my live playing. That's the thing that I'm going to be in this room right here making those videos for you guys and seeing what comes of it. I want, you know, I guess for those of you who are still watching, the question becomes, should I make a lesson program where I practice with you guys? Like let's say like I do a lesson one as if I was teaching a student and go through every exercise multiple times. Like, okay, this is would be what the week one lesson would look like. And I play long tones and I do scales and I do etudes and I do all the things I would normally do in a lesson. Or should have it be where it's kind of a routine and it's a diet of lessons where I record something once and then maybe shuffle it around like, okay, you're going to watch tone one, tone number one. You're going to watch scales number 13. You're going to watch etude number 5 this week. And you basically shuffle videos around. So one is where you shoot entire videos for that week, which is a lot more work, a lot more time spent. The other option would be you shoot shorter form videos where you kind of incorporate that into regular practice. One thing I think that is also another failure of a lot of the lesson programs that I've seen so far is that there's no kind of recapping of ideas learned earlier in the course. I think that the best thing that people can do is sometimes to go back to the beginning of a book and play through all of the exercises again, play through all the etudes again. Even if you've worked your way through, let's say, 3 quarters, there's no reason why you can't go back to the first etude and second etude and just read them and make sure that those things are still happening. So, yeah. I think that this might be a good place to stop. Thank you guys for listening if you got this far. And if you have any thoughts of things you want to hear more about, I would love to talk to you guys and engage with you guys and, maybe even bring on some guests at some point and see if I can make this a regular thing. It'd be really fun for me if you guys like it to do this. And even if you guys don't, I'll probably still do it. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.